Hello, I'm Pamela Davis. Welcome to episode 62 of the Well Done Life podcast. Hello, and welcome back to episode 62 of the Well Done Life podcast. I'm your host, Pamela Davis. If you are new here, hey, how are you? Thank you for listening. I hope you stay a while. If you've been here before, thank you for continuing to listen. Your support means so much to me. I want to say thank you also to all of the people who reached out to me about last week's episode, Trauma Check, and I'm going to put a link in the show notes about that episode. If you hadn't had a chance to check it out, I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Like I said, your support means everything to me. And this has been a week, so we have a lot to talk about, but I want to make sure that I set everything off with love and intention. So again, I want to say thank you. And also, I want to make sure that I kick it back to what this is all about because, I'm sure you all can recite it, but until everyone knows, we have to say it. The Well Done Life is a space for women. This is a safe space where we come together, share our stories, and hopefully learn from each other. I personally believe that women are the foundation of society, and that when we talk to one another, beautiful things can happen, growth can happen, change can happen. So that's what this is all about. And I also know that, yes, I have only been sharing my voice for quite a bit. I promise there will be some more voices brought back to the pod. But right now, I just feel like I'm good with this. And I hope you're good with it too. So now that we kind of got all that covered, I'd like to send some prayers into the atmosphere for us all because I am praying that everyone within the sound of my voice and beyond will have health, love, and happiness on your terms. And be good to yourself. Be good to others. You are all lights, and the world needs you. So please make sure you're social distancing, wearing your mask, washing your hands, and leading with love. COVID is still real, and so is the daily traumas that seem to get inflicted upon us. Be vigilant and just make decisions that, are based on what's good for you and those that you love. It's really that simple. I think we just overcomplicate it sometimes just because of who we are as people, but just do what's best for you. And also, please, when you get a chance, I know this might be a lot to ask, and some of you I know some of you actually are already doing this, but please try to send a prayer into the atmosphere for the world. 2021 hasn't been playing around. I mean, we have seen so much for it only to be the end of April right now. It's scary. And we have 8 months left in 2021. So we really need to cover each other in prayer as much as we can. And that kind of even leads me into this week's topic. This week, like the last few weeks, have been tough. I know for myself, I'm just, juggling the stress of life and family. And I have to admit the traumas that are inflicted with the countless shootings and the recent murder trial of Derek Chauvin. It's been a lot. And I feel grateful that this week that at least got resolved, the murder trial, and that I'm glad justice prevailed in that case. But I kind of want to speak on that a little bit because I feel like people are expecting there to be like this form of happiness, this celebratory situation. And I think part of it is, of course it is, because we're happy that justice has finally prevailed in this case because it is so rare that justice ever happens in situations like this. But this really isn't a moment of celebration for us or maybe just for me and other people that I've seen. I think this is a matter of looking at how we can move forward and really look at how we can have justice reformed because it is really frightening to think about what it took just for justice to happen in this situation. It took the world witnessing a murder in order for there to be a conviction. And I don't think that can get lost in the winning of the conviction. And that is a very troubling point that we are at. But I have to admit, even with it being troubling, it is also encouraging because it does show that there is still justice and that justice can prevail. But it also shows that the system very much so does need to be reformed. And that's great because I think we needed that reminder. And when we were thinking about that, or actually as I was thinking about how I was going to prepare for this week's episode, I wanted to make sure that I shared information with you because I personally think it's important that all of us are informed about House Resolution Bill 7120, the George Floyd Policing Act, because that's really how true reform is going to happen. It has to be legislative and it has to happen on the federal level so that we can really get to a point where this is not the norm anymore. And that bill facilitates, like I said, federal use of federal enforcement of constitutional violations. Example, excessive use of force by state and local law enforcement. Among other things, though, it also would lower the criminal intent standard from willful to knowing or reckless to convict a law enforcement officer for misconduct in a federal prosecution. It also limits qualified immunity, and that's really one of the big ones, as a defense to liability in private civil action against a law enforcement officer or state correctional officer. And it also just authorizes the Justice Department to issue subpoenas in investigations of police department for a pattern of or practice of discrimination. And then it also would create a national registry, the National Police Misconduct Registry, which would compile data on complaints and records of police misconduct. So it gives us like a framework to prohibit racial profiling at the federal, state, and local levels. And that's key because, again, this is a moment where we can obviously celebrate a win and a conviction in this case, but we also look at how we can use this case as a stepping stone to create true reform. Because we, in spite of it all, we still need that. And we have to start reforming policing to avoid instances like this from happening again. I mean, it's time. It's beyond time. So check it out for more information. Be informed. We really need to rally behind this. As I think I mentioned, I'm going to also link it in the show notes so you will have access to the actual bill itself and you can read it. But we have to leverage our voices, our power, our votes to ensure that we are really bringing about change. It's important. And I know everything is so polarized right now because like I mentioned in last week's episode, like I mentioned trauma check, one thing in particular is with all of the traumas that we are experiencing, I know that it doesn't affect everyone, and it's important to obviously give praise and blessing to those people who don't feel this, but at the same time, don't get haughty about not feeling what everyone is feeling. Remember, oppression of one group opens up the opportunity to oppress the masses. So just because it hasn't caught you yet, don't think that it won't, because life moves really, really swiftly, and so does karma. So just make sure that you try to lead with empathy and that we are seeking to understand versus being judgmental or aloof, because the fall can be devastating. And I pray that never happens to anyone, but I feel like that had to be said again because I think a lot of people are very haughty, very aloof about what's going on. And you can't be, because at any point in time, that could happen to you. I heard on CNN, I believe it was today, one of the biggest threats to American safety as a poll when they were talking through the United States itself and other people were voting, they fear domestic terrorism. They don't fear overseas terrorism. They fear domestic terrorism. So we have to fear the people here. And part of those people that are a part of that fear, unfortunately, are policemen and policewomen who take the law into their own hands and are able to get away with senseless crimes. So we have to be cognizant of that. And we have to start to reform those areas of our lives. So And that's not really what we're here today to talk about. This is not that episode. But I wanted to kind of utilize that as a stepping stone to this week's topic. Because this week's topic, I felt like that just perfectly kind of segued into it. I wanted to talk about empathy. Or better yet, I'd actually like to talk about what appears to be empathy in short supply right now. And I really feel that, especially when it comes to Black and brown women, because obviously as a Black woman, I definitely see it. And it's just unfortunate because this week we had another shooting. This young lady Her name was Micaiah Bryant. She was killed by a police officer responding to a call about a fight in front of her home. All the details are still unfolding. However, we know that the young lady was shot 4 times in the chest and that she was 16 years old. 16 years old. And that to me is just such an unnecessary, tragic loss of life. And it's just very sad. And I've heard so many people talking about the fact that this young woman had a knife and talking about the fact that she was about to attack another woman. I've also heard that the young woman who was actually shot was the one who called the police and that she was defending herself. I've heard that her foster family was actually there witnessing the fight. I've heard it all. I mean, there's just so many different angles and twists to the story. And that's why I said I think the details are still unfolding. I even read today, unfortunately, that the argument that started the fight was over an unmade bed and cleaning up the house. And if that was that is the pettiest thing to me I can only imagine. But I guess, again, not making any judgment because I want to talk about that too. It's just unfortunate that something so small could lead to something so tragic. And because to me, when I think about this story, when I think about this situation, all I know is that a young woman is dead. And my only question is, did it have to turn out like that? I mean, why does it seem like every altercation with a black or brown person, regardless of age, has to turn out like this? Why are guns always the first thing it appears that the police go to when de-escalating a situation? And believe me, I understand every situation is different. But many of these situations are handled in other ways when dealing with non-black and brown people. And that's the problem. I've seen countless videos of white men charging police officer with knives and they are being taken down with tasers. I saw a man actually run out in the street with a knife, and I think he actually stabbed the policeman, and he went to jail and he was alive. So it's just unfortunate. And again, I'm not making judgment because I can't, but the optics are real jacked up. And it's just amazing to me. And then to even know, like, the mass shooting in Savannah a few years ago by Dylan Roof, the young man, he was taken to Burger King on his way to jail. You killed 9 people, but I'm going to give you some Burger King. And on top of that, they gave him a bulletproof vest, too, before he went to jail. That's crazy. But if that had been a black or brown person, I don't think they would have made it to jail. They probably definitely wouldn't have made it to Burger King. So it's just, it just doesn't make any sense to me. But again, I know that every circumstance, every situation is different. But again, like I said, the optics are crazy, and that's the problem. But that's not what I want to focus on today, believe it or not. Because I'm mentioning this more so because I want to set it up to talk about, I want to talk about empathy or the lack thereof. And this conversation is about why we have to stop blaming other people for their death and why we have to stop blaming people for their circumstances, because where is the empathy? And when I thought about how to prep for this show, I sat and thought about empathy because I've personally felt that empathy has been on the decline for quite some time. And I think I've said in other episodes, I pray for the world every day. That is one of the prayers that I pray into the world, that empathy comes back as something popular, because it is very unfortunate to me that empathy is on the decline, especially right now. I mean, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, and I don't understand how something like this, affecting everyone from all walks of life, we can further lose empathy in this situation. That to me is crazy. I mean, they always say tragedy brings people together, and I've seen some semblances of that. But I've also seen more division than I've ever seen in my lifetime. And that's something that we have to address because it's frightening. And it's frightening because even on the smallest of things, we can't seem to show it. We politicize everything and we judge everyone for everything. I mean, from mask to getting vaccine to not getting vaccinated. I don't know about you, but I'm like, I always think to myself, One, what's so big deal about wearing a mask? If it's going to save your life and save mine, I don't get what the big deal is. Or to vaccinate or not to vaccinate. That's somebody's personal choice. It's not like it's mandated for people to go out and get vaccinated. And everybody has to do what's right for them. I've made the choice to be vaccinated, as I mentioned previously, but that may not be for everybody. And I can't make someone do anything that they shouldn't do. Only thing I say, make the best decision for you, do the research and think about it. But I'm not going to judge you for not doing that. But we judge, again, everyone for everything. And don't get me wrong, because I don't want this to come across so preachy that I forget that judging is human. I mean, we're all flawed. And we've all judged someone or something without truly understanding the circumstances. But to not be empathetic, that's something more. That's something deeper. And it speaks to the heart of who we are as people. So I was like, I want to make sure that I kind of dig into that, because I think people throw out words all the time and never give foundations. And y'all know, if you've kind of rocked with me a little bit more on the pod, or now you're getting to know me, I love to research. So I wanted to make sure I looked up the word empathy, because I want to make sure I give clear foundation as to what I'm talking about. So empathy, according to my favorite dictionary in the world, Merriam-Webster, is the act of understanding, being aware of, being sensitive to, and vicariously experiencing the feelings, thoughts, and experience of another, or either the past or present without having the feelings or thoughts, and experiencing or experience fully communicated in an objectively explicit manner. Also, the capacity for this. And the second part of the definition is the imaginative projection of a subjective state into an object so that the object appears to be infused with it. And I didn't say this before, but empathy is a noun as well. So what struck me most about all of that is the capacity to be sensitive to the thoughts, feelings, and experiences of another. That's powerful. That's also, if you think about it, key to how we should move through the world. Everyone is different, and we all aren't living the same lives. So when we deal with each other, we have to understand that each of us is carrying our experiences into every encounter we have. That means we have to try not to make assumptions about how someone is going to act in any situation, and that's okay. We have to give people space to be who they are, but we also have to make sure that we don't take it personally or judge each other for not making the same decisions that we make. Those, if you think, those are also two of the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And I talk a lot about this book, The Four Agreements, because it is an amazing book. It is a guide to living your life through four simple tenets. And it is a book that changed my life. And so essentially, the four agreements are: don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, be impeccable with your word, and always do your best. And like I said, I talk about this book a lot because of the impact it's had. And I'll put the links in the show notes again for everyone so that you have it. But those four tenets are four keys to making your life better. Two of those tenets are also key to being able to deal with people from a place of empathy. Because just by making the decision to not take anything personally and not make assumptions, you're leaving space in your life to be empathetic. And you're also leaving space in your life for peace, because it takes a lot to judge. It really does. It takes a lot of energy to make assumptions. And empathy and peace are so important, not just to the person that you extend them to, but to yourself. I mean, if you think about it, we need more peace and empathy in our lives. And I think it's harmful to ourselves and others to spend, like I said, so much time focused on tearing people down, talking about people, judging them, especially when they've passed. I mean, bringing it back to Ma'Khia Bryant, I was just so disheartened to hear people say that she brought that on herself. And let me clear that up too. Some people are like, oh, that's just white people feeling that way. That is not true. I've heard black people say that as well. And I'm just floored that people would say that. But then they're also going, well, she should have dropped the weapon. She should have known how to comply. All these she should have done this. And I'm thinking to myself, all we've seen is a dash cam video, a couple mobile shots, and a lot of lip service from other people who've kind of summed up her life in less than 3 minutes. And she was 16 years old. And imagine how you were at 16 years old. And some of y'all probably got into a fight or two and you don't want to admit it, but you have. I have to admit, I have not had my last fight. Well, I had to think about that. Was I fighting at 16? No, I was actually really nerdy and not fighting at 16. I was just trying not to get beat up at 16. That was my thing because I wasn't cool in the slightest. But I have fought before, and it's not something that I'm proud of, but I've done it. We've like that, and I'm saying that to say we've all done things that we are not proud of. And if people were to judge us the way we judge them, some hurt feelings around here. And I mean, how can you sum up someone's life in the matter of maybe, I think, and I haven't seen, luckily, her video of her getting shot. I've only seen still images of it, and it still makes me nauseous. And I talk about that as well. I don't like to, espouse to that because that's trauma, and I'm not trying to bring any trauma into myself. I can't. But I always think about when stuff like this happens or when anyone unfortunately passes away and I hear people talking about them, tearing them down. What if this was your daughter or your sister or your friend? Would you be so quick to say those things? And like I said, I'm not just hearing from white people. There are black people out here saying the same thing too. And it's just like, would you do that to someone that you loved? Because we do that to so many people, and it has to stop. Remember, the judgments you make about someone else come right back to you. Your mouth and your thoughts have power, so you have to be careful how we wield them. You also have to remember that we don't know this young lady's full circumstances. She was living in a foster home, which makes me wonder where her parents are, and that makes me wonder, wow, somebody's mother lost their child. Somebody's father lost their child. I can only imagine how devastating that is. My parents always raised us to know that their job was never to bury us. Our job was to bury them. They never wanted to live through something like that. And especially 16, I mean, your life is just beginning. And if she's in a foster situation, you don't even know what that's about. So again, there's just so many different layers to it, but it's not just Ma'Khia Bryant. It's a lot of people. We do that all the time. We tear people down in death. And we sum up their lives through social media and media outtakes. And that's crazy because you don't know what the sum of somebody's life is through a post. That's not enough. And who are we to make those judgments? So, because remember, like I said, your mouth and your thought has power. And you have to be careful with how you wield them because those thoughts and those actions and those words come back to you. Karma is real. And you can judge someone today, but you just don't know when your time is coming. So you have to be clear with your thoughts and words. We have to seek to understand before judging. It's easy to tear someone down with words and thoughts, but I think it's harder and more powerful when you learn how to use your power to understand and to learn. That's when empathy is present. And that's the key to empathy. That's what we need more of. We need to have more empathy in the world because when we allow ourselves to be more open, when we allow ourselves to seek to understand, we learn, we grow, we evolve. And that's what we should do as people because everybody is bringing something different to the table. It's like a great dish. It has lots of different little ingredients in it, but it all comes together to make something magical. So that's how it has to be when we are dealing with people. And we have to get back to that understanding of how we should be because it's not just for them, it's for you. Because when you are doing that, like I said, empathy invites this space for you to be able to receive, to understand, to grow. And that's what makes love flow. Because this isn't a cookie cutter world. So we can't be cookie cutter people. You weren't built for so much more than that. We're all lights. So we have to focus on shining brightly and being a beacon in the darkness. We spend too much time tearing people down and using our energy in the wrong way. And that's why we wind up getting hurt. That's why you wind up seeing people in these places where we're just arguing with each other over the stupidest things because we don't seek to understand. We rather get caught in our feelings and just keep going forward. And that's not serving any of us. It's not serving the person that we're tearing down. And it's not serving you because you're putting that negativity out in the atmosphere for it to come back at you. So I think it's a time to focus on, building bridges rather than tearing down mountains, because those mountains only divide us. And like I said, when empathy is present, love has a chance to flow. And we need so much more love in the world. So I'm curious to see how everything is going to shake out with, unfortunately, with Miss Bryant's situation. I definitely pray for everyone impacted by that. But I also pray for us all. I pray for empathy. I pray that this week we can try to go out and try to understand someone a little bit more than what we thought we did before. Invite that energy into someone else, but also into yourself. So that way you can spend your energy and your time in the right ways, because that's what we all need. And that's what's going to help us all grow. So I want to thank you again for listening this week. I feel so honored for the love and support that you continue to show me. And I hope I gave you something to think about as you move forward this week. I know this episode may be a little bit shorter, I promise. Next time I'll go a little bit longer. But I wanted to make sure that I talk about this because I really feel like empathy is under attack. So I feel like we have to talk about it. We have to tap into ourselves so that we can seek to understand and grow. Because I think if you try a little empathy this week, you'll be surprised what you learn and who you're able to bless. And all of my info will be in the show notes. I'll be back next week. I cannot wait to talk to you guys. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.